Hey guys, this is Larfen. Welcome to a new episode of my video replay analysis. Our first replay today is going to be Metropolitan by Cheeseburger. It's going to be a quick little split cap here. It's pretty good, and we're going to look at it. Alright, so we'll start off with this opener. So, an interesting thing I noticed I like about this opener is his use of extending and contracting knees. Like, normally, that's definitely not something you want to do. You don't want to extend and then contract, or vice versa, most anything. Unless you're doing some sort of like gimmicky thing, where you're like doing it frame by frame, but that's kind of rare for people to do, I think, nowadays. But I think he executed this quite well, actually. It just flows very well, much better than it normally would, definitely. It shows that he definitely like put effort into making sure that was smooth. A lot of the times you can fall in the pitfall of extending and contracting knees when you like really want to get in a position but you haven't planned it out well enough. Generally, if you extend and contract your knee and it's hasn't been extended or contracted for roughly, I'd say, 20 frames beforehand, you generally don't want to do it. But like I said, there are exceptions for everything, and this is definitely one of them. So this is a pretty cool opener, in short. So then after that, he lands into this sort of pose. And like, I have nothing against it, but I feel like this is the sort of pose that you see a little too often. Like, it's definitely an effective place to start before you go in and do something. But it's just like, it's been done a lot, and and almost everyone has used this kind of setup for building momentum. So I really would like to see him get a little bit more creative with it, or at least like less noticeably like stop in the pose. Like, it seems he sort of pauses in that pose for a little bit to show like, oh, I'm in this pose. If you flow through it real quickly and make it less noticeable that you're in that pose, it's definitely a lot more acceptable to me. But it is effective, as it should be, and he uses it to, I think, probably its full effect in this case, in that he gets a really nice 3DM crotch boom punch. Really good punch. Nothing really to say bad about it, I don't think. He definitely just did it right. And then this spin into torso grab is definitely very good. Like, it flows very well. I think a lot of problems that a lot of replay makers have is they just can't follow up on their hits. And this is definitely an example of how you should do it. He just kept the momentum that he had from the punch, kept spinning. He got a pretty graceful little position here, and then just stuck his arm out, and then brought his foot around and kicked it. I do have a little bit of a problem with this kick, though. It's definitely really clean, but I'd prefer it if he followed through on it a bit more. It looks a little bit weak in its current state, because I generally don't like it when people extend their hips after they've done a kick. I think a lot of people would agree with that, but that's definitely my personal preference. So I'd prefer him to keep that leg a little bit more contracted, or maybe even held. It might actually be held even, I don't know. But I'd prefer that leg to be stuck out there a little bit to show that you have a lot more follow through. But he does do a very good job at falling into this pose after that kick. So that is definitely a pro. So overall, this is definitely a well-executed replay. A bit on the simple side, so it's nothing remarkable, but there's not that much bad with it. I'll say that. Our next replay here is going to be Toxic by XXSJXX. This is going to be a pretty simple replay, a split into skeet decap. Definitely a pretty commonplace replay, so we're going to take a look at this. Alright. So he starts off with a pretty good opener. I like this opener. It's And it's definitely effective, and it's not totally commonplace. He falls into a pose where he can definitely get a good amount of momentum. And here's my first problem here. His right knee, I think it would have been better if he had left it a little bit relaxed. It looks like in this case that he contracted his knee a bit. It might actually be relaxed, but he contracted his hip, and that closed the knee a bit. And when you're in this kind of position, I'd really like to see both feet planted on the ground until you're at full momentum. And I feel like he didn't use this opener to its full potential. Like, for one, the punch that he does there, I don't really like. I don't see the appeal of it. It's just sort of like a little tap on the belly. And also the aforementioned foot on the ground thing. So I'm not a fan of the chest punch because I feel like it doesn't serve much of a purpose. And I really don't like hits that don't either manipulate or dismember Yuke. With, like, exceptions, of course, as there always is. But for the most part, I'd really prefer every time you touch Yuke for there to be a concrete purpose to it. And then he follows it up with sort of a pretty standard snap kick kind of thing. Like, it's just left rotated chest, contracted to hip, extend the knee. It's like by the numbers, it's a kick. That's like the basicest of kicks. And I definitely would have liked there to be a little bit more flash in that hit. But then after that kick, he definitely is going to have some trouble following up on this. He's not very close to Yuke. I think in this case he might have been able to reach and grab Yuke, but I don't know if it would have been the best choice in this scenario because I don't really think there's anything great that could have been done in this scenario. Yuke is a bit too far away, and either follow-up would have been very, very standard. So in order to remedy this, one thing he could have done is maybe try and get a little bit less power on the kick. If you kick less hard, obviously Yuke's going to go less far away. So you can try that. Another thing you can do is you can just sort of aim the kick somewhere else. Just changing the aim a little bit can definitely fix your follow-ups a lot. It's really tempting once you get a dismemberment to just keep rolling with it once you get the dismemberment that you want. But sometimes it's really good to edit that dismemberment a little bit so you can have a much better follow-up out of it. And I think that could have been done in this case. So after the split kick, he dismembers his own wrist and goes down and gets that skeet cap. So a skeet cap, I feel like, is a bit of a trite follow-up. Like, it's an expected follow-up to this kind of situation. Like, as soon as you saw him not attacking Yuke, it's immediately like, oh, this is going to be a skeet cap right now. And then he rips off his hand and does it. Another thing I don't like about the skeet cap is that it takes him a while to do it. I think he definitely could have made this a lot smoother and faster. He definitely could have gotten his foot planted on the ground earlier, and that's basically, you just need that and something to throw to do a skeet. So I think he could have made his position a little bit better in order to get a smoother throw out. But he gets down, throws that hand, and then I do like this transition to the pose. That's really good. That's probably the best part of this replay. He transitions to that pose very smoothly, and it's nice. But overall, this is a pretty basic replay, and I'd really like to see a little bit more flair put into this by this replay maker, because he obviously knows what he wants to do and what he's doing and how to move and everything, but you really want to try and be as unique as possible, and I don't think that was achieved in this replay by any means. Our next replay here is going to be Lightning by Sui, or Suion, I'm not sure. He has no texture, so I'm going to assume this is like an alt because he was banned or something. But this is a pretty cool little Sambo split cap with 2 skeets. I'm pretty sure this is Sambo anyway. But let's take a look at it. First of all, I really like this opener. Like, I really like the movement of it. Just the look of this Tori right now, I think, is a very pretty look for a Tori. Both hips are extended. He's got one leg sort of relaxed. I think that's a really pretty position to be in. And then he just sort of falls down and uses his hand and gives himself a nice little spin. And that's definitely a really good follow-up to this. I don't think I would have done that. I think I would have tried to spin more rather than add more momentum. But I do really like the follow-up. It definitely fits. And he gets a good, strong spin out of it. And I do also really like how he plants his other hand in the middle of the spin. You can see there. And he gets that little extra push to spin a little bit more. One thing that I don't like about that spin, though, is the fact that he gets into that double knee contracted position. Like, this is definitely like a good position to be in, power-wise. But once again, going to the redundancy thing, this is a very common position to be in. So I would prefer that he be in a little bit more of a extravagant position, maybe. Just a little bit, like maybe have some extended elbows in there, maybe raise his shoulders a bit, just get a little bit more movement in there instead of just spinning around in that position. He doesn't stay in it for very long, which is good, definitely, but I think he could have done without being in that position at all, because he doesn't even really use it that much. Like, he plants his leg and then kicks it, but I don't think he needed to be in that particular position to get this kind of follow-up. So I think he could have easily made that spin a little bit more pretty. So he lands, gives a little kick off with his right leg for another spin, and gets a really nice core kick. This is a really nice kick. I like it. It's not done with the heel, which is cool. It's done from the side, which is cool, and it's a core, which is always cool. So I do really like that kick there. It's really solid. It's got a lot of power to it. And you don't see people kicking with their heels like that a lot. It's a really nice looking move too. Like, when you kick with like that, I really like the look of it. It's just really hard to pull off. So I really like the fact that he managed to do that. He does a really smooth follow-up into this decap kick. And normally I would say that the forearm dismemberment was something that should be taken out because it's accidental, but the fact that he uses the forearm definitely makes it okay that he did that. I don't know if the forearm was originally intended to be broken off. I would put money on it was not intended to be broken off, because he's just kind of in a shitty angle to be getting this decap, so he just kind of worked with what he got. But sometimes really good things can come out of you improvising in bad situations, which is what is done here. So he uses that forearm that he grabs and smoothly spins and skeets it. I would prefer that the skeet was more direct. It sort of bounces before it actually hits the head. But the smoothness of the skeet is definitely to be admired here. I think he definitely could have made that a more direct skeet without sacrificing much smoothness. I think that he could have done that with a little bit of editing. But I'm not complaining. So he gets that skeet. Oh, and by the way, I just want to say that I really like skeets that are done with like 2 joints like this, like either the wrist and elbow joints, and I really like full arm joints, like with the shoulder and pec attached and everything. But that's just a little personal aside. He struggles a little bit to break his hand here, which I actually didn't notice until right then, but that's definitely something that could have been edited out as well. Like, he definitely could have edited it like right after that skeet came out. and taking out that little thing he did with his right arm there, grabbing it and contracting it and all that. And it's in that weird position where both the elbow and wrist are contracted, which isn't a good look, I don't think. He takes it out quickly, but I would prefer that it was just never there in the first place. And the way he does break off the hand I do really like, because he just slams his fist on the ground and then grabs the arm stub, which I think is a really creative way. I want to say creative because I haven't seen it very often. I'm sure it's been done before, but it's definitely non-standard, and I appreciate that. So he breaks the wrist and then smoothly skeets that as well. And he also does a very good job at skeeting that, considering that he doesn't have a wrist to throw it with. So it's a lot harder to whip around and get good speed on. But he managed to get really good speed on that skeet, which is pretty hard to do in the situation that he put himself in. So kudos for that. And then he just sort of steps into that pose. So overall, this is a really good replay, actually. There are a few There's a few things that I would have done away with, but I think this is definitely a very good replay, and I'm surprised I haven't heard of this guy yet. So kudos. And now our last replay here is going to be Rusty Old Robot by Free Flash. This is a manipulation replay with a little bit of a cute little opener there. Ends with a bit of a madman and a nice little double skeet. So we're going to take a look at this. Alright, so he starts off with a bit of a gimmicky opener, which, gimmicky sounds bad, but it's definitely not. It's just, and you can see he's just moving his wrist back and forth really fast with probably relaxed elbows, I bet. But I think it's cool looking, and it gives it a little bit of its own flair to the replay. So I have no problems with that, even though it's technically not even hard to do, but the fact that he decided to do it, I think, is nice. So after he gets the opener out of the way, he gets a nice little lift on Yuke's torso, and then immediately gets his foot in there for a little bit of a spin. I would have preferred him to maybe get a little bit more of a horizontal rotation on Yuke from that kick, rather than it seems like he pushes Yuke away a little bit with that kick. And that's something I don't like to see in manipulations that much. He follows up on it well, given the circumstances, but I feel like it could have been better if he hadn't kicked Yuke away so strongly. Because once you kick Yuke away, it's really hard to catch up with him. He does, but it's really hard to catch up with him and make it look good and also continue the manipulation without just hitting him further away, because you're constantly playing catch up. So you really want to try and not kick away and sort of kick to the side as much as possible, because that definitely provides for the prettiest manipulations, in my opinion. But he gets that kick, and this head kick I'm not too much of a fan of. He hits with the shin for one, and also it doesn't really add much to the manipulation. It just sort of hits Yuke. And it's okay. It's not bad, but I think I would have preferred the replay without it, I think. Depends on how it was executed. But he gets that kick, and then he gets another. That's a nice manipulating kick that he gets there on the torso, which is actually impressive considering when you hit the torso, that's pretty much his center of mass. So you can't really get that much out of it. But he manages to get a little bit of a spin and a little bit of lift out of it. So that's really nice. I also like the fact that he... Oh, never mind. I was about to say I like that he dodged the feet there, but he got clipped by him a little bit at the end there. It's really nice. I always love when someone's manipulating Yuke and he sort of dodges him. You know what I mean? Like the feet are just going by his legs, and they just glide right by, and he just barely dodges them. I think that's always something really cool looking. I think he could have managed that definitely in this replay. He was so close. I already had given him credit for it. But if that little Yuke's foot just didn't turn red, it would have been really nice. But he pushes off again, and then he does I really like how he managed to sort of wrangle in Yuke here with his foot. He sort of just sticks his foot in there, contracts the leg, and then just pulls him in. And he doesn't pull him in exactly, but it's definitely it definitely puts him in a much better position than he would have been if he hadn't gotten his foot in there and also contracted it. So that's definitely a good maneuver to use in manipulations. And I definitely say you should try that, because hooking Yuke's leg is very good, especially right before you get your hits in, which is what he's doing here. So, one second. So he does a good job at doing that hook into, he pushes off really well and gets that double pec dismemberment. Double pec dismemberments are just, I think they're objectively pretty. Like, no one's ever going to complain about a double pec dismemberment. They're just nice looking. They just cleanly get rid of both arms. It's really nice. So he gets that very smoothly. Good follow-up with that grab. Maybe a little bit of a ugly position that he's in for that. Oh, one second. Messed up. So, one second. When he gets that kick, you can see that he sort of has both his legs extended. He has both of his arms down. His chest isn't moving that much. There's really not much going on besides him extending his elbow, which does not make for a very interesting replay. Interesting section, I'd say. And then once we get to it, I also really would have liked if he had kept his right leg extended here. He contracts it for that kick, but I would have liked for him to re-extend it, because he's going to be using that leg to get his kick in. And so he's not optimizing his power in this fashion, because his leg isn't getting its full range of motion. And also, I don't like that his hip is almost completely contracted before the knee is even extended, which is not something you want to do. You want every joint of your body to be working together for maximum efficiency. So I definitely would have liked for him to use a little bit more of his body in this section here. And then he gets a 1DM, which I think he could have done more, but I'm not going to say it's bad because he has a quick follow-up. Single dismemberments are good if you follow up them quickly or they're in the right context. Well, I guess those are the same thing, but this is definitely the right context for a single dismemberment. Like I said, he could have gotten more, but it's not a big deal that he didn't. So then he quickly follows up with this punch here, which is good. And then he gets another grab here. And brings his foot up and kicks there. That's not a good kick. I'm just going to say that. I don't like that kick, at all. Because, okay. For one, I do, for one, it is, his leg is extended this time, but it looks like his chest is almost completely turned left before his leg even starts moving up for the kick. So he's not getting much chest movement for this. And also, since he grabbed with his right hand, it'd probably be preferable to kick with your right leg, because that's generally the leg you want to do your forward kicks with when you grab. So he does a forward kick with his left leg, sort of across his body. And also, another thing about it that I don't like is that he totally hits with the shin. It's dismembered here. And he's, barely extended his leg at all. I think it could have been better if he had edited it to make it a knee, or obviously just make it a normal kick. But as it is, it's, in that weird in-between place where it's just sort of, you just kicked him with his shin. I don't like that. And you can see that the kick didn't do much. It was the lead up to the kick that did the dismemberment. So it's not even in slow motion that appears. It's just not a great thing, I don't think. I missed that decap, so I need to check that again. Sorry. So after he gets that chest dismemberment, does the head just decap on the ground? Yes, it does. Okay, so I'm I really like decaps. I think decaps should usually be one of the most prominent dismemberments that you make in a replay, either by making it a very distinguished hit or by making it the last hit that you do. I think that's definitely a good strategy to follow when you're making a madman. And in this case, he just sort of kicks off the piece, and then it just falls down and breaks. And so he didn't actually even hit it to break it, which I think is something that should have been fixed there. Another thing right there that I noticed while I was looking at the head, 1 second, you can see that he tries to punch that little glute piece with his left hand and it just doesn't work. And that's definitely a no-no when you're making a replay. You don't want to... That was pretty obviously meant to be a dismemberment that he was not able to attain. And that's not... You don't want to show that you tried to do something that you didn't succeed in, because you have the edit button. So you should never be in a situation where you make that kind of hit and you don't dismemberment. You should either not make that hit at all or make that dismember. As it is, that's definitely a big flaw. I do like how he threw the piece on the ground though and it broke. That's nice. I do like ground DMs when it's like obvious that you threw it on purpose and it hit the ground and it broke. But in the case of the decap, I didn't like it because it seemed sort of secondary to the chest dismemberment that he got, and he saw that it decapped on the ground, so he's like, oh cool, I'll just stay with that. And then it shows that it seemed like that was accidental. And you don't want anything to seem like an accident when you make a replay. You definitely want it to be clear that you're doing exactly what you want to be doing. So anyway, after the throw, he breaks his wrist, and I really don't like this last part either. So he breaks his wrist, and for one, he reattaches it to his hand in a pretty bad position. You generally want your wrist to be on the outside of the direction you're throwing it. And as you can see, he breaks his wrist. First, he catches it with the nub piece instead of the better arm piece. And when you break it on your chest like he's doing here, I think it's much better to grab the wrist with your other arm that has a wrist, so you can get a lot more power on the throw. But as you can see here, when he makes this throw, it's not a defined motion. He just sort of lobs it up while he's sideways. It doesn't look like he's in a really good position to make that skeet, and he just didn't have a very good setup. I think he definitely should have made more of an effort to get a strong setup for this skeet, or just not done the skeet at all. The replay wouldn't have been bad if he hadn't done the skeet. I don't think it would have been any worse if he hadn't done the skeet. So I think he could have easily done without the skeet or improved it. It is nice that it's a double skeet, that it hits the chest piece, the abs piece there, and then it bounces off and hits the lumbar. And that is nice. I do like double skeets, but it's just so lacking in power and a proper setup that I can't advocate it. But then he, at the end, he just goes into his pose, and that's that. So overall, this is a pretty good replay, and it definitely has really good parts to it. But there's a little bit of slop in it, especially once the dismemberment started. The manipulation is fantastic, I'll say. I really like the manipulation done in this replay. But once he gets into the dismemberments, it seems he lost a little bit of patience when he was making his replay, I guess. It seemed like the dismemberments were more of an afterthought than the manipulation was. There's a lot less creativity put into the movements here. So that's it for this episode of my weekly video analysis. So you can send in your replays to my Yahoo account, or you can PM them to me on my on the forums. I would prefer that you don't post them in my thread. I've gotten a little bit of that in the past few days, and I bolded my line in the OP saying that, but I'd really prefer you not to post replays in my thread, just because I like to keep it clean, and I have another place for that. It's not the place to be posting replays, basically. But anyway, see you next week.